Okay. Due to error-laden assessments which do not match lessons in CSCOPE, students are routinely left feeling like failures. They had a certain group that were responsible for the lessons. They say these lessons come from teachers all over the state of Texas. And backtracking that, I've talked to some of the teachers that have contributed to the lessons, that they were paid to contribute the lessons, and they say it's really suspicious. And I've had this from more than one place. When I hear it from one place, then you can kind of, interpret it maybe slanted one way or the other. But when I hear it from one or two or three places, independent of each other, then I know that there's a pattern here. That the lessons that they wrote and that they were paid to do never showed up. Never showed up in CSCOPE. Somebody else wrote the lessons in it. When we've asked for who are the authors of these lessons, give us the credentials of the people who have written these lessons, we haven't gotten that as of yet. There is one person who has made a connection that some of the people that have written these lessons are outside of the United States, and another person has found a link to even outside of the country. So who has written them, we don't know at this point. But when kids are getting lessons here on one spec, then they had a region, I think it was Region Center 10, that was responsible for the assessment, CSCOPE tests. And this CSCOPE test was supposed to be so hard and rigorous, they would get you ready for the STAR test, because that's the big nasty thing that's going to give us our rating. So we're going to get these kids ready with this rigorous test, because we're going to give the lessons that are all teaks aligned and everybody's doing the same thing at the same time, so everybody will have the same chance to get the right answer. But then they would give them the tests that were not aligned with the lessons. So often those test questions had a question on there on something that was not taught. And when I heard that the first time, I said, my gosh, can they not fix that? Can they not fix that? When teachers were trying to fix that, then they were told that they were not team players. I have a niece that was in there that in her school, she was the top teacher for grades 2, and so they would give her all the low students at the beginning of the year for her to bring them up. And she kept showing them, as a good teacher would, I need to show you some problems here. There's some problems with these lessons. And after a while they said, I guess you're not a team player. I guess you don't like working for us. So there was those subtle little insults there that finally that they have to back off. And I've heard that statement over and over again. So in schools where the teachers are still trying to do the best, they have codes now. Now, think about this. They have codes that when this 3-minute walkthrough, and this is how this is done to make sure teachers are on these lessons, they have iPads, and they come into your room unexpected, and they're there at the back of the room, and you're teaching, and you've got your kids in your little social groups, the social constructivism, and you're on a lesson, and if you are not using the correct sentences, the correct verbiage, the correct lesson, the whatever that is the objective there, then they're keeping score on their iPads. So they're bringing their lesson up on the iPad, they're watching you, and they're taking score here, keeping score on you and keeping score on the students. And I've seen the forms that they use for that. Very little has to do with what they learned. It's basically the social behavior. That's what social constructivism is about, the social interaction of doing that. Now, I don't know about you, but when I taught, for some strange reason, I had every ADHD child in West Texas in my classroom. So when anybody walked into the classroom, unexpectedly, it would take me anywhere from 10 to 15 minutes to get the pencil back in the kid's hand and then back on task again because of that disruption that comes in. So what these teachers are having to do is actually deal with the disruption. Then they're marked because they don't have control of the classroom. This particular teacher told me that she looked up and there were 6 people at the back of her room with iPads, taking pictures of the room to see whether or not she's got the right things hanging on the wall and that she's on the right page at the right time. One award-winning teacher, 40 years, never had a negative comment on anything ever done to him. Within the 3 months of CSCOPE that he had, he was written up 10 times. His page number was incorrect one time. But whatever it was demeaning and they were intimidating. Okay. This is what I did because I published books. And I'm not in competition with CSCOPE because my books are based on accelerated learning. TEKS to me are just the foundation. I teach accelerated learning. I teach kids how to make a perfect score on the TAKS test was when I was doing it. And there's ways for the brain to do that. So when I was working with writing books for children to elevate their vocabulary and doing it, like that kindergarten page that you saw before, then I can almost look at something and say, well, that's either a second grade or that's a sixth grade. That looks like a sixth grade reading level. And then I will do a readability test, which is a formula to how many words, syllables, and so forth and so on, to see if it's the degree of difficulty is for that particular age group. So when I was looking at this one, I said, my gosh, that doesn't look like it's supposed to be that age group. Let me run a test. And it's for the 4th grade. Now remember, this is 4th grade reading material, but when you do the test, next one please, it's at the 6th grade reading level. Go to the next one. This is a 5th grade one. Now this is for this year. And then here it is, and then it's supposed to be 5th grade. It's at a 9th grade reading level. They have not done an internal review of their own material on what they've done. And when they say teachers have written this for teachers, for teachers, by teachers, for teachers, you can be a fantastic teacher, but you may not be a historian. Or you can be a fantastic teacher and not know how to put it in the verbiage. You can know how to teach it and make the connection, but how to condense something complex down to that level, unless you've had that training in doing that, in texting for children. So one does not necessarily mean the other, and they have this above level. So I'm trying to figure out who wrote all this stuff. CSCOPE pushes an educational philosophy that makes teachers abandon direct instruction and leaves out geography, vocabulary, development, cursive, spelling, grammar, systemic reading instruction, memorization of multiplication facts, and the skill practice needed for students to gain confidence. If I heard one thing from more of these teachers, is that we cannot go back and reteach. That if the child fails that CSCOPE test, then we are on the same page at the same time. Oh, that's the other thing. School board members were sold this on 2 basic reasons. Now, your board members may have had more. But the 2 that I heard over and over, it's going to help us with the STAR test, because we're going to have a more rigorous approach, because we're going to have all these TEKs bundled, and they will be able to, everybody will make sure that everybody's on the same page at the same time. Everybody is on the same lesson at the same time across the state of Texas. Now think about that. Everybody's on the same lesson at the same time across the state of Texas and doing that, the same unit. And my red flag went up and said, is that mind control? And that's what I thought. Inefficiency on top of that was a gimme, but mind control. And so we spent decades learning that different kids need different amount of repetition to put things from short-term to long-term memory. And oodles of money for that, and now we're saying that everybody gets the same amount at the same time, and then they have to move on at the same time. Okay. CSCOPE philosophy constantly puts students into learning groups where young children are expected to teach each other, and the teachers are told in the script any answer is accepted. That's social constructivism. You don't have exactness. You don't have a well-defined answer. Any answer is acceptable. Now, in basic child psychology, children have to have parameters of what is right and what is wrong, what is expected and what is not, so that they can move forward with a feeling of security. If they don't have those parameters there, then you have a very insecure child. You have insecure adults in it. So when you have any answer is accepted, then what do you say? Well, what am I supposed to know for the test that's coming? And that's the other thing. If you will look at their test, and I've done the research on test taking. Testing companies have to have failure in a test or they cannot resell tests. I'll say that again. Standardized testing companies have to have failure in a test or they cannot resell the test. They cannot have everybody making 100 on it. And we've had 2 plus 2 and 9 plus 9 for how many years now? So the information is out there. How do they guarantee the kids will not get the answer? Well, there's 5 basic ways that they do this in their formula in doing it. And this is when they say the STAR is more rigorous, there's just certain ways that you can make a question more rigorous. There's one on the tax test in 6th grade that were 6th grade math problem. They take 22 mental activities to prove that a child can multiply and subtract money. 22 mental activities that I counted. And then I rewrote that problem in 3 steps. And it depends on whether that child can hold and juggle 22 mental activities to get to the answer, or they can do it in 3 steps. You have the same TEKs. So when you have something, any answer is acceptable, then you have that indefinite answer, then you have an insecure test taker. Now, your top 25% in any school, Longview, Pine Tree, anywhere, top 25% kids in any school bring information to the classroom. They're your self-starters, and they've learned outside. So they bring it to the classroom. Your bottom 25% rely on the classroom totally. in doing that. So when you are looking at something where any answer is acceptable, then who's going to have a better chance at something? The one that does something outside of the classroom. And that, of course, is an individual effort. Okay. Examples of indoctrination. Y'all seen this before? This gets us riled up because when somebody attacks our value system, or the value system which we want our children to grow up in, then we come up with, little fingernails coming out ready to get on to something. The Boston Tea Party was one, I think, that Glenn Beck pulled up first. Next one. This one on Islam. The mother went in and told the director of CSCOPE that this was on the website. He said, no, it wasn't. She said, yes, it was. No, it wasn't. Yes, it was. And then reached over and pulled it up, and there it was. Okay. And when I bring this up, they had to learn quotes from the Quran, and the next one, please. And that Allah is the Almighty God. Now, you will have people, and I had an interview where somebody was trying to tell me, well, Ms. Mac, are you saying that we shouldn't learn about Islam? And I said, we should learn about all religions if it's factually based. If it's a factual based and equal and it's important, it should be there, rooted in fact alone, not in a slant of any which way. They asked me that question over 3 times trying to get me to say that it was wrong for you to learn something. But I will tell you that because of our problems that we've had in our recent history, that this needs to be looked at more delicately. That's only a reasonable, rational approach of doing that. And so when you see more of Islam brought into the classroom to look at for kids to learn about, then you want to know, well, what is the objective there in doing that? Is it truly to educate the child so they will better understand what's going on in our modern world, or is it to influence them in some way or the other? Do 5th graders have enough basic knowledge about tyrannical oppression and war to understand fully this question? This one is the one on to bear arms. Give 2 opposing views to the Second Amendment for 5th graders. Why would you ask that? Why would you ask that? Now, you and I could probably do pros and cons on anything, then go back to our value system and walk out the door with our value system intact. But when you have kids that are taking on, it's called authentic learning, and when you do authentic learning, that means that you take on the emotional wrap of the other side. In other words, you role play. You think about the other. And again, you and I can do that and then come back to our original value system. Pros and cons. Yes, I see your side, but I don't agree with that. But with children, once they have embraced that emotional element of something, then you have to wonder whether or not how deep it is influenced. And I've had parents tell me that their kids come home and tell them they no longer believe in God. And well, where did that come from? Well, in school, we're told this and this and this and this. And so the parent is upset. Well, where is this coming from? And so because there is no transparency with CSCOPE, that's the big thing. The no transparency so that you can say, I would like to opt out for my child to be out of that class because I don't want that influence on my child. You don't have that until after the fact. Okay. This one is where they have police suspect Paul Revere of hiding an illegal substance in his home. So when they're making up stories, even that, does this imply that Paul Revere, a beloved American figure, was hiding drugs in his home? Next one.